What's up, everybody? It's me, it's the B.O.B., and I'm here with my man, Maestro. Maestro, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing so outstanding. I don't even know where my socks are. Let's just get it.
Well, this is Around the Table with Big Bob and the Maestro. That is the Maestro. I am Big Bob, and this is the podcast that we talk about whatever we want. You know, the SWFL draft wrapped up on Saturday. There were some surprises. There are some players still out there that people expected to be drafted that weren't drafted, but there were some personal things that they need to deal with. That's why they're still out there. But the biggest story through the entire draft process was, or during the entire draft 3 days, was Shedeur Sanders still being there on day 3. Now,
Right.
there's all kinds of speculation on what it was. People throw around the race card for it. People throw around it was the owners, majority white owners, wanting to put him in his place. I what I'll give my feed. I'll give my thoughts, and I'll try and keep it short because it frustrates me when everything goes directly to the race
Yes.
card.
Yes.
It frustrates me that we don't use some critical thinking. We don't listen
Thank
to
you.
the professionals that are out there. I personally will go. The rumors were that he had some really bad interviews during the draft process, that he was extremely entitled, which is something we already knew going into the draft. That's nothing new. That he was extremely entitled and teams just didn't like the way that he was in the interview process. I personally, as someone who hires people, if somebody has a bad interview, I don't care what your resume says. I don't care how well you did at your last job. If I don't like you because you're a really, really bad interview and you're coming off as cocky and showing off and all this stuff, I don't want to work with you because you're not going to fit with
Right.
my team. It
Right.
has nothing to do with what somebody looks like at all. And and I know people are going to say, "Oh, he's white." I hate to do this. I hate to get on the race thing because I say I hate it. It's like, "Oh, he's white." He says things like that. I have underneath me one. Let's see, not 11 managers that I supervise, and 9 of them are black. I don't care. I don't. If you are going to be best for the job, you are who I want for the job. And if that means that's not just what you put forth on the field, the court, the office, whatever, the facility, whatever you were doing, I have to be able to work with you, and you have to be somebody who can take
Thank
criticism,
you.
who can
Thank
be
you.
molded, who can understand that nobody's perfect, and that we all have things to learn from. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, and we can all improve on things in our daily lives. There's just so many things that we can improve on. If you think you're perfect, then you are
Mm-mm.
sorely mistaken.
Mm-mm.
But
Mm-mm.
I
Mm-mm.
think
Mm-mm.
that teams saw on the field. Let's be honest. The Pac-12, they people don't even people weren't really considering them a real. They weren't a power
Thank you.
conference anymore. They just weren't.
No.
It's been years. They were going the route of the Big 12. Um, they were there. They got pity invites to the big bowls, but people didn't really look at the Pac-12 as the Pac-12. And what do they have? Four teams, or they had like 4 teams or 2 teams or something left over before they started
Yeah.
coaching some of the smaller schools.
Yep.
UCLA, USC left. Oregon left. It's like all the teams that were something left, and Colorado, despite Sanders doing well, when are we going to give some of that credit to Travis Hunter? I'll be honest.
Thank you.
I will talk
Thank
crap
you.
about
Thank
Travis Hunter just because he went to Colorado and left Jackson State and followed Dion. But that's just whatever. I really don't care. But Travis Hunter was the number one. Sorry, in our mock draft, he was the number one
in our
overall.
mock draft.
He was the number
So he
2
goes number
overall
2.
pick. He's considered to be the best defensive back and the best receiver in the class. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are we any other time we're going to give we're going to give other players credit, but we wanted to act like Sanders was doing it all by himself when
Right.
he wasn't. But yeah, they had a terrible O line. He got hit more than anybody else. I, he just didn't necessarily stand out. Now, I'll get into this a little. I'm sorry, Maestro. I know I'm going on a tangent right now. I'm on a roll.
Get it, baby. Get it. Get it. Get it.
I
Get
I do
it.
not believe that Tyler Show should have probably gone ahead of Sanders. I will say that. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that Sanders was a top 5 prospect in my opinion in the entire draft,
Right.
but there are some guys where I went, I don't know. I don't know about this, but yeah, Sanders. So what? Fell to the 5th round. Cleveland Browns ended
Yep.
up snatching him up. What were your
hmm
thoughts on that after they just took Dylan Gabriel? And
Thank you.
I mean, they still do have. I think Joe Flacco might still be there. Obviously, the writing's on the wall for Deshaun Watson.
hmm
There's a 5th one there, and I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But uh, they, I'm trying to pass this off to you, but I still have a lot more to say. The Browns. So if teams were holding off on Sanders because
hmm
of the show that it was going to bring, the Browns
Right.
showed that they were the biggest circus in the entire SWFL by not
Every
only
year.
waiting till the
Every year.
5th round for him, but also drafting a quarterback 2 rounds earlier to bring like you literally just you're the laughing stock. If they are not on Hard Knocks this season coming, I don't know I don't know. It just
That's such a strong call. Oh my God. You just nailed something there. That it's a show ready to go, right?
it is.
Um think about what then the Redskins, now the Commanders did when they
Yep.
drafted RG3 and then drafted Kirk Cousins later, who's going to be a part of my mini rant I'm going to give later. But it was sort to me, it felt like the same thing.
Yeah.
One, two, the Browns is where quarterbacks go to die. It's like, centers going to Portland, pitchers going to the Mets, quarterbacks go to Cleveland. Those places you're dead. It's where it happens. Um, and it looked like a hostage situation. It looked like, okay, there was some deal being made out or whatever, so he could say he was drafted or something, whatever backdoor deal went down, went down. And it's so funny you mentioned something about the race thing, because I'm just gonna, because on your point, there are so there what? There are 30 NFL teams. Is that right? 30,
32.
32, 30. Then you think 32. I'm confusing my leagues now. So of those 32 teams, there is probably four owners, no, three owners that could categorically, there's no way that they could care less about their team other than the money that they're guaranteed, and the whole idea of being an NFL owner. Because even before one ticket is sold, each NFL team splits the revenue from the product from the previous year as well as the television revenue. So even before one ticket is sold, every team I think now is cashing a check for close to $1.4 billion. I think that was the last number that I read, and somebody please Maestro check me on that one to make sure that I'm remembering that right. So there are a couple owners. The guy in Jacksonville, it's a check in his status, no big deal. You can talk about the people in Indianapolis. It's going that way, kind of going that way now too. And then if you want to get really, really, really funky about it and just kind of be weird, Cleveland. So you have like these teams where there's guaranteed money and the status of being an NFL owner, and that's what it's going to be. And the fact that you brought up the whole race thing about Sanders, if his last name was Jaworski, who would care, right? It would be like, oh, this is other kid, and none of this conversation would happen. The fact that Cam Ward, who got drafted first, congratulations. The fact that the entirety of his time, instead of celebrating him as the number one pick, was the outlets arguing about why it wasn't Shedeur Sanders. I thought it
Yeah.
was so disrespectful.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just so like unprofessional. And the fact that argument between Mel Kiper and these other people continued on through the night.
Yep.
and then to the next day, and it's just like no matter who got drafted, and now we're gonna draft an outside linebacker from booty state, and they're gonna bring up Shedeur Sanders not being drafted yet. It's like, come on. So, just to me, and again, and listen, for our listeners out there, I don't know if it bothered you, or our viewers out there, I don't know if it bothered you. We don't know if it bothered you. If it did, let us know, because I'm gonna tell you how I felt. I felt like it became a 3-day therapy / infomercial for Shedeur Sanders than it was about people who are getting their opportunity now to earn a spot on an NFL franchise. And it bothered me because that moment only happened once. So now whenever Cam Ward goes back and looks at his draft, he's going to hear Shedeur Sanders' name mentioned, I think it was 17 times, and his name mentioned twice. Not counting when he was announced at the table. So that's just wrong.
Yeah.
So that being said, on the other side of it, to me, Big Bob, the draft was a mess, and talking a mess because of how things sort of shaped out across the table with some other teams, decisions that were made. And oh, by the way, the prank call against Shedeur.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That from that coach needs to take his son to some place, put on boxing gloves so he can legally whip him for about a day and a half, because that is not the kind of thing you do.
No.
And it speaks to the coach, who I actually like, but what's going on in his home.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make it about that right now, because that is just beyond cruel. It is sardonic. It is cruel. I'm going to say the E word, apologize. Evil. How would you want to ruin somebody's night like that? And it had to be the Falcons, of course, the team that lost the draft pick because they talked to, they pumped in sound in their stadium. They lost the draft pick because they
Kirk Cousins couldn't keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, exactly. They were almost lost the draft pick because of how they handled a contract with Ridley. They almost lost another contract with how they did the retirement for another player. It's like it had to be that team, that would just do something that something associated with them. Bob, I was in an organization once where an assistant position coach lost his playbook, not once, not twice, 3 times.
That's 2 more chances than I'm surprised he got.
Everyone else said the exact same thing. And when he finally got released, because they didn't want to use the word fired, when he finally got released, the word was, he was going to take a better opportunity someplace else. Well, he was out of coaching for a year before he finally got snuck back in someplace else. And, I still, I was on practice squads and stuff like that as a tryout player, and my playbook was only on 5 pages. I still have them. I didn't. I made sure. First, I licked them, then I shoved them down my pants to make sure that they can it's mine, right? So but just the fact that you left your tablet out like that, unsecured, where that kind of thing can be done, that is that is negligent, reckless behavior, and the fact that became a story, and the fact that the Steelers didn't take anybody because there is this under the table deal with Captain Nightmare, Aaron Rodgers, who just doesn't want to go through training camp. Big Bob, I never thought I would say this about the NFL because I know they print money. And I know a lot of our viewers, thank you. Oh, by the way, everybody, your comments about our draft picks, I'm sorry, whether you agree with us or not, I thought they were awesome. I love the fact you made fun of me for having Cam Ward so late. I love the fact you made fun of me for having. I just love it. I hope it came across that way. I thought it was awesome.
I think what people really didn't understand is that we were looking at it. We weren't trying to be so crazy that we weren't trying to be different, but we also weren't trying to, it's like Cam Ward. People act like Cam Ward was the only player talked about being the number 1 overall pick coming into the draft. It just so happened that as we get 2 nights away from the draft or a night away from the draft, that all of a sudden he is the number 1 overall pick for sure.
Right.
6 months ago, Shedeur Sanders was considered that he was going to go number 1 overall. And then Travis Hunter was projected to be the number 1 overall pick. Then Abdul Carter was projected to be the number 1 overall pick. Did the slide for some of the players, could it have been a little, I say slide, I say slide to, as I always like to say, you can't really say anything is a slide until actually things happen on the actual field. But like, we were looking at it at a different way. What are the teams? What's the team's biggest need, and what is on that roster right now? And
who's the best fit?
Getting Will Levis some targets to throw to give him another chance, versus bringing in a quarterback and not having a target for that quarterback to throw to makes a lot more sense. It makes a ton more sense. Again, is Levis a future Hall of Famer? I hope so, because I love Penn State, even though he transferred from us. But he does put mayonnaise in his coffee, as someone pointed out in the comments, and that is gross. That is very gross. He also eats bananas with the peels on. But we look at it. Everybody looks at things differently. So whatever.
Well, and oh, by the way, you know what, just for, and I know, and oh, by the way, the viewers who actually talked about how you didn't really know anything about the SWFL, we get that, and we appreciate you still checking out the show, because that's what we're here to talk about, that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
If you know anything about the SWFL, there's a player by the name of Reggie Bush that won the Heisman, almost won the Heisman twice. And actually, in a weird kind of way, because I think he lost it the first year he was available. I think he came in second or third this first year, won it the second year, and was up for it a third year. So I mean, he was probably at the time one of the most dominant. Reggie Bush, one of the most dominant players in college football, next to maybe somebody like a Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
He was not the number 1 draft pick in his draft. He was number 2. Guess who was number 1? It was a defensive end, Mario Williams, I believe from North Carolina State. So it wasn't even like this guy came from like some major school. He came from North Carolina State. Reggie Bush went to USC, the real USC, not the one in South Carolina, but University of Southern California. And then Vince Young was 3rd in the draft. I'm not going to do this. I promise I wasn't going to be Maestro on you. But the fact that Reggie Bush, everybody was the consensus number 1 pick was going to be Reggie Bush. The stuff was coming out about the parents in the house and all this other stuff. And next thing you know, the night before, Mario Williams walking down the middle of it was either New Orleans or it was Beale Street in Memphis. I can't remember which one. Where all of a sudden these news people rushed up on him, told him he was going to be the number 1 draft pick, which he had known for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And somebody from the Texans drafted him, if I'm correct about this. The Texans had leaked it out. So again, you never know what's going to happen that night or the day before in the war room while people make the decisions that they make. That is the randomness of the draft. It doesn't, and Mario Williams ended up having a really good career, as did Reggie Bush. But it's just, the draft is one of those things where you have so many people making these decisions for these teams. And now more and more with the advent of social media and stuff like that, it's just gotten more crazy, which bring me back to the point of when we were talking about this, like the Michigas that happened during the draft. You know, teams already have their backdoor deals. Teams already decided what they were going to do. Teams already decided. And oh, by the way, there's nothing wrong with any of this. But it is impossible for anyone to sort of pretend what a team is going to do, because guess what? We don't know all the details. And the whole thing about Shedeur, God bless him. Yes, he's got drafted. And for everybody who's doing that low-hanging fruit thing, talking about the race stuff or whatever, and the reason I talked about those owners earlier is just to put a bow on what I was saying, Bob. It is about winning, because most of those owners want to be Robert Kraft. Most of those owners want to be the Hunt family in Kansas City. Most of those, I'm saying most, not all, they all might say it. But you can tell by their actions who really is serious about their team. The guy in Jacksonville is not serious about getting a Super Bowl ring. He's just making money off his team.
Yep.
The cat in Indianapolis, the group, I think it's a group in Indianapolis. I apologize. Same thing. The group in Cleveland, I don't know what they're doing. I don't even count. Forget my Jets. We don't even talk about that. I don't even think they're in the NFL anymore. I think the entire Jets squad got put in the portal and are going to be playing at Tabuka State Technical College in Mesa, Arizona. So it's yes. Was there a time when there were issues with black quarterbacks? Yes, it was. That is completely documented, and it is very true. And there's a great thing out now about black quarterback, whatever. But everybody knows Terry Bradshaw, right? From the well, at least most people who follow the SWFL know Terry Bradshaw. We were a shoulder injury away from the quarterback that won the first four Super Bowls. Would have been. His name was Joe. I did this on you before, and I apologize. Joe Gilliam Jr. Joe Gilliam was a quarterback for the Steelers who happened to be black, and he got hurt that very first year. They reluctantly put in Terry Bradshaw. They end up going on. Of course, they won the Super Bowl that year. The very next year, missed a year, then won it the 2 years after that. You better darn well know the Pittsburgh Steelers, who've had 4 coaches since Moses crossed the freaking Jordan River, or whatever, that they knew even in the early 70s, they already knew this guy gave us the best chance. They reluctantly went to Terry Bradshaw. He ended up doing the same. They could care less that Joe Gilliam, what his skin color was. They just know that he was a good quarterback until he hurt his shoulder to the point where he couldn't even play anymore. So whenever I hear that from the professional media pundits, I'm sorry to say, and this is unprofessional, so everybody who's watching us, don't listen to Maestro on this. I tune out. I try not to, because that's just somebody reaching for lower. Because unless you can actually show something, and I'm not saying that there's no racism. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that some people don't feel that way. But when you're talking about somebody who wants to put a ring on their owner's finger, to walk around holding that Lombardi trophy, to walk around and be all Mr., and it's usually Mr. Big Shots. Yes, there's some women owners too, but to walk around and being Mr. Big Shot, trust me, they could care less what color the quarterback is. Believe me, they could care less. And unfortunately for Shedeur Sanders, we knew he interviewed bad. We talked about that earlier. If you go back and listen to our draft piece, we talked about some of the things he said that did not go over well at all. And now some of that is starting to come out because people are being honest about who are you going to trust to run your multi-gazillion-dollar franchise. It's not going to be someone that you can't trust to stand in front of the media or stand in front of a group of people and actually get something done.
Yeah.
I just say it like that.
Yeah.
So
I do want to help you because I know we talked about Gilliam before and I wanted to double check. So it wasn't an injury that got him benched. It was he ignored Chuck Noll and refused to follow Chuck Noll's game plan, which if any player, especially if you have a Hall of Fame potential coach, if you ignore that game plan, you bet yourself you are not going to be starting anymore.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking about some of the stuff I heard inside from some of the players and stuff. We're talking about part of that ignoring the game plan. Was he injured and that's why he was doing it? Maybe there was some community. Yeah, I remember us having this conversation. Thank you for bringing it back.
I want to before I forget though. I'm going to say something that's a little controversial because you brought up Reggie Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie Bush was not the best running back at USC during his time at USC.
Nope. No, he was not. Thank you.
He was potentially the greatest athlete. Well, I guess now you got to throw Travis Hunter up there because of what he was able to do. But Reggie Bush was arguably at the time that he left USC the greatest athlete to ever play college football. Absolutely no doubt there. He was not the best running back at that school, and they would have had just as much success with or without him. Lendell White was a monster for them back then. But again,
he was a true running back.
Huh?
He was a true running back.
He was a true running back. Reggie Bush was
Mm-hmm.
a Swiss Army knife. He could do everything, but you weren't going to have him running between the tackles 25, 30 times a game. And then when he got to the SWFL, you weren't going to have him taking swing passes to the outside either, because the Eagles sure showed him on that. He got
Oh,
blasted.
yeah. He probably still sees the Eagle logo of the helmets that like body spinned him.
Well,
I have no idea. I have no idea. I have no idea what. Oh my God, what was the coach? Sean Payton was thinking when he kept running that same route. Like, dude, he's not gonna live to tomorrow.
Well, let's do this. I'm gonna say we have 5 minutes left. I'm gonna try and
Okay.
help us keep this under a half an hour. We talk about it
Okay.
every time. I see we're at 25 minutes. Let's try and keep this under. Again, we could keep talking. We still have a couple teams out there. It's all depends on who you talk to, who those teams are, depending on the argument of who still really needs a quarterback. And
Right.
of those teams that still need quarterbacks, there are still a couple big names out there. Obviously, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. Prior to the show, you mentioned Kirk Cousins still sitting there on the Falcons. I think those are probably the two teams, if you look at a roster, that I'm sorry, I don't know what I had a conversation in my own head and I was just answering. There are two teams in my opinion who need help this season to at least usher in the future, and that's the Steelers and the Saints. That's my opinion.
Ooh.
And you have Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins still sitting out there. I say those two teams. Well, you go ahead. What are your thoughts on the teams that need quarterbacks right now? Who do you think are the ones that who do you think needs a quarterback right now to help usher in that future?
So the Jets, they kind of filled a gap. My Jets kind of filled a gap. I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm not really worried about San Francisco just because we don't know the status of Purdy, but I'm not sold on Smith in Vegas. Only because I'm not sold on him. And I know that's my own prejudice kicking in, and I'm going to be honest about that. But I'm not sold on him. I think Caleb Williams is finding his way in Chicago. And oh, by the way, just to get it out of the way, how much longer is Matt Stafford really going to be? He hasn't been Matt Stafford in a while.
Yeah.
So the Rams, I think, are kind of in need, at least, if not for the future, a transition to the future. So there's some teams with some questionable people in positions. I kind of say it that way. I think that's fair. But I like how you went at it, right? Because you look at, I think what's going on, Bob, before you get to your teams, I think what's going on is a lot of teams are realizing I don't want to sink much more of my cap money into a quarterback. I want to wait and get past the June 1st deadline. I can sign somebody to them. It doesn't hit my cap as hard this year. And oh, by the way, I don't have to make that early investment, and I can make minimal investment in terms of if I make the mistake of signing a Kirk Cousins late, right? If he's a post June 1st signing, and I decide on September 3rd he's got to be out of here, I don't get a double hit on the cap.
Yeah.
I just lose whatever percentage of his guaranteed money that was promised. So that's what I'm thinking is going on right now with those quarterbacks. How do you feel about it?
So I think for right now, and the reason I mentioned the two teams that I mentioned, I don't think the Rams need a future quarterback. I think they are still fine with Stafford being that bridge quarterback, going from the starter to the bridge quarterback. When you look at the Saints, you got Derek Carr, who, again, we have no idea what's going on with his injury. We know he's hurt. The rumors are it's potential career threatening.
Right.
But we really don't know. And then I had mentioned earlier about, I'm not sure why Tyler Show went instead of Shedeur Sanders here, but they ended up with, he is a project to me, he is a multi-season project if he's ever
Mm-hmm.
even going to be a starter. I mean, this is
Right.
a kid who he played 6 seasons in college football. He played 6 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
But he played for 3 different teams. And the first 2 teams that he played for, he really didn't do a whole lot. His only season that he really did anything was his 6th season at Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
3,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But injuries and inconsistent play when he was at Oregon and Texas Tech, he just wasn't really that
Right.
impressive. So you
Right.
have that guy versus a Sanders who, again, despite his flaws, still did show
Mm-hmm.
something while he was at Colorado. There's no denying that Colorado had a little bit of a turnaround when Dion got there. But again,
Right.
I still think we're pulling away from Travis Hunter there. But I think the Saints would do, and they have Olave, Kamara. They still have some solid talent there who I think you can, if
Mm-hmm.
you trade for a Kirk Cousins or you bring in, well, Aaron Rodgers isn't going there. So he wants to go to a team where there's a ton of talent to make
Right.
his job easier. But you trade for Kirk Cousins on a team like that. But then you look at the Steelers and you got Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson. They drafted Will Howard, and then they
Mm-hmm.
brought in Seth Morgan. He was an undrafted free agent out of New Hampshire. He
That's right.
really, I think he might have just got brought in because I think he's from Pittsburgh, so he's a local kid. I think he just got brought in for the story, but he never really did
Practice
anything
squad.
impressive. Will Howard. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. He was drafted, I believe he was in the 6th round, coming off a national championship, but it was his only season at Ohio State. When
Mm-hmm.
you have a player who is supposed to be very talented, he did exactly what he was supposed to do, and he helped lead Ohio State to a national championship. A couple years ago, people talked about not sure if Joe Burrow was really going to
Yeah.
be that talented because of what he did at LSU, but he had that record-breaking season. Joe Burrow
Mm-hmm.
did exactly what you are supposed to do with that kind of talent around you. I would have been more worried if he only threw for 30 touchdowns. And even if he
Agreed.
threw 2 interceptions, it's like you had all that talent and you didn't throw for 60 touchdowns. Like, what is wrong with you?
Agreed.
But I just think
Agreed.
there's so many. I think the Steelers and the Saints, because of the question marks and the youth there, you don't want to hand the keys off to Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson. We already know what happens whenever you got Mason Rudolph back there. I believe, I think he's the one that Myles Garrett bashed in the head with the helmet.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. Again, Will Howard, again, 6th round pick, national championship, but his career started off slow. He got benched. He got beat out by Adrian Martinez. He was a Nebraska transfer, and Adrian Martinez wasn't. He didn't do a whole lot prior, and he didn't really do a whole lot when he was there. I think he started. I think he played in 10 games and had 6 passing touchdowns. He had 10 rushing touchdowns because he
Wow.
was an athletic guy.
Right.
I just think those 2 teams, like Aaron Rodgers, right now, and the Steelers also brought in Robert Woods. I think he signed today. Um, they have Pat Fryermuth. They, if Aaron Rodgers is serious about playing, he needs to sign with the Steelers. And
Yeah.
I think the
But he's
Saints
not.
need to trade for Kirk
But he,
Cousins because Kirk Cousins isn't going to be happy sitting on the bench. He'll play the show right. He'll play the game right now, saying
yeah.
he's okay teaching, but he wants to start. He wants to. Well, I don't know. He
Yeah.
really
He
wants the
definitely
money.
wants to start. Yeah. Well, yeah, that too. Because as Fish because with his last contract, he's now officially made more in his career
Mm.
than Tom Brady made in his career. Um, Aaron Rodgers has no interest in being anything other than Aaron Rodgers. He
Yep.
wants to be hugged and tongue kissed all the time. And then on the other side, I wouldn't trade for Kirk Cousins. I wouldn't give up anything for him because I know he's nothing but a wet turd on the roster. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that language. He's a nasty spot on the drawers of the Falcons, and they can't get rid of him. So the longer I wait, the more I drive the
Yep.
price down.
Yep.
And I'm saying real quick. So everybody, please fact check us on this. When Big Bob talked about the talent that was around Joe Burrows at LSU, I believe his main 2 receivers were Jamar Chase and
Justin Jefferson.
Was it Justin Jefferson
Yep.
or was it Kellen Winslow? It was Justin Jefferson. Okay, Justin Jefferson.
Kellen Winslow.
Yeah, and then
Kellen Winslow was like 15 years ago, Maestro.
yeah. You know what? I'm thinking of somebody's son played at LSU
Randy
too. Was it
Moss's son was the tight end.
Randy Moss's son? Thank you. That's what it was. It
Yeah,
was tight end. Yeah. So there was a lot of talent there. There was a lot of talent
yeah.
there. And again, please, Maestro's old. Please, rusted steel trap rusted. Shut up here. Um, but you know, um, but you're so on point about the whole deal with Kirk Cousins, though. I really do. It's just like LSU needs to do. I mean, Lord, LSU, New Orleans needs to do what they need to
Yep.
do. But I'm just gonna be frank about it. Why would I help the Falcons if I'm the Saints? They're my arch enemy. Arch enemy. Sorry, I don't have to help them. I can just say, listen, here's the deal. I'm gonna wait till he's $1, and screw you, Falcons.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. Get over it.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, you're right. Like, why would you're not going to help your you're not going to help out your enemies? Um, and he, like you said earlier, his price is going to go down every single day. I think they
Mhm.
wanted, if I remember correctly, I think they want someone to take on at least 25 million of his contract or something like that. Nobody is
Right.
going to take on $25 million of Kirk Cousins' money to help you out whenever he wasn't even 100% when he was playing last season. You can't guarantee that they're 100%. Yeah, you're going to do your physical and stuff like that, but you're just not. Why waste your time? Get him at the
Exactly.
lowest possible dollar bin discount, the blue light special. Get him at the blue light special, or the Falcons are going to get desperate enough that they're going to cut him, like, and they're just going
Yep.
to eat it. It is
Yeah.
what it is. But um, yeah, I mean, I do personally still think, and it's just because I have a little soft spot for Cousins. I still think he has a little bit left in the tank. I thought the
Mhm.
Falcons were I thought the Falcons were a bad choice, but he is about the money more than he's not. And I think he proved
Yeah.
that. He proved that he held the Commanders hostage for a couple. What was it, two? And they thought about
That's true. Yeah. No, you're right. You're
he at
right.
least 2 seasons on the franchise tag.
For franchise tag. Yep.
Yeah, and then he got the Vikings for now. I say he's about the money. He did take a little bit less from the Vikings, so they didn't have to play for the Jets. But that's another story for another day. But yeah, so let's wrap it up. I guess, were there any surprises for you? Anything that stuck out for you from the draft that we didn't already talk about, other than obviously Sanders' fall?
The other thing that I would say is the number of players who were in what I call non-quantifiable positions that were drafted.
Mm,
Um, like the outside of offensive line guys that were like, even though it was a quasi position of need, that's really hard to quantify that. And the fact that it wasn't as many diverse linemen drafted. Like normally you see offensive linemen who are drafted who can play guard or tackle and or center. And these were a lot of these cats that were drafted had only played tackle or only played guard or only, that sort of thing, or only played center, and not as many centers as I thought would go. So that was kind of my surprise.
I know that Packers fans would be surprised, but they drafted a receiver in the first round for the first time since 2002, which I'm sure they were
Mhm.
ecstatic about. But yeah, I mean that was the pack. They have not for the longest time. They have not done their quarter, and I'm happy because that means that they aren't as good, but they haven't done their quarterbacks very well by getting them targets in the draft and like building it. They just I don't know what their deal is.
Mhm.
There is still, I know there's a lot of off the field things still trying to get straightened out, but the wide receiver out of Texas, Isaiah Bond, he didn't get drafted. He was projected to be a first round pick. But the off the field stuff, that's where that stuff really gets you. And I mean, the
Yeah.
allegations are serious. You don't know the
Yes.
facts right now, but teams are more likely to go, we're going to wait it out. Um,
Yeah.
I do wonder though if it all gets figured out, is he one of those guys? Because this is something that's been floated around a lot. Is he one of those guys that might try and return to college for another season?
Can
Because
he though?
I there are so many lawsuits right now against the
You know what? That is true.
NCAA, just for various things.
That
Um,
is true. You're right. You're right. You're right.
can anybody? No, they can't. However, there is a growing belief that if some of these kids that didn't get drafted or didn't get drafted high enough and want to go back and make a couple $1 million more in college than in the SWFL,
Hmm.
that they might try it. Um, uh, what I want to say, um, eligibility wise, if he were to return, he was only a junior, so he
Right.
does have that senior year still available to him, and also a redshirt year if he really. But again, that's all if all these things happen. But yeah, I mean, it is. There's people have complained about the NCAA for so long, but nobody has really done anything about it. But teams, players, people are really stepping up right now and pushing the NCAA. And I
Hmm.
from my understanding, the NCAA is losing a lot more than they're winning in these cases, and it's one of
Always have
those.
been.
It
Always have.
happens.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Do I think he's actually going to try and return? No, but I do believe if he gets his name cleared and everything, and he returns, maybe returns to Texas for another season. Texas isn't going to say no. You're going to have
No.
one of your top targets returning for Arch Manning. I'm I'm just saying it's a win-win for everybody. Bond's going to make a couple
Great
million
point.
dollars. Arch Manning's probably making $10 million right now as in
Right.
college. Um, but yeah, no, my biggest surprise, and it's more of a fun poking at the Packers, is that they took a wide receiver. Congratulations. But Maestro, do you got any final words for the people?
Love y'all. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for walking us, always communicating with us, and just know, holla at your boys because we always want to be there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you, Maestro, and I appreciate y'all for listening. As always, have a great rest of your week.